Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the 12 Step Crashers. This is episode number 6. And Eric, you are introducing a new guest to the audience. First of all, how are you doing, my friend? We haven't spoken a couple of days. I've been neglecting or common work these days, but how are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. I kind of reset after a couple of busy days there last week where I kind of went a little outside of my routine, a little too far. And don't worry, I covered your ass with memes all the last couple of days.
I've seen
I re-
that.
yeah. I got like 15 in the bank, so we're all good on that. And yeah, so today just it's a pleasure for me today to welcome Sam. I know Sam from my time at Heritage. For about 2 months he was there when I was there, so I got to know him pretty well. And he was always at the smoke shack in between anything that was workshop related or food. So yeah, he was a fixture. We actually could have hung drapes on him. He was there that often. So Sam, it's good to see you. I know you're out west. You're looking good, and welcome to 12 Step Crashers.
All right, man. Oh, I appreciate it. I seen the podcast, and I was like, I want to be on a podcast, and this is right up my alley because it's something that I've lived through. So,
Well, that's the point. So why don't you start off? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
all right. Well, I'm born in Montreal. I'm just about to turn 31 now. I've had problems with uh, substance abuse since I was 13 years old. But where the real addiction started was 2013. At I think I was 19 or 20 years old, and that was with opiates. And that's what really consumed my life. And just like there was nothing else that mattered at that point. It's pretty wild. So I'd say, 2013, what happened is, well, the usual kind of story is started on pills, started on Dilaudid from a friend's mom. Didn't have any idea that it was kind of exactly the same thing as heroin. That connection wasn't made up until I woke up sick, and then I was explained, hey, well, this is what it is, and this is what it does to you. And from that point on, I kind of just went down the rabbit hole. So for about 10 years, I was on it. I had gotten on methadone programs, but I mean, if you want to use it, it's not going to stop anything. Same thing with Suboxone. And so about what was it? Well, okay, let's go through the story a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, I went from I lived in a good house. Mom's always around. Brothers and sisters when we were growing up were always involved. My dad worked long haul truck driving, so he wasn't always there, but he was still like doing his best to support the family, and we all knew that, and that didn't go unappreciated. But the time away from your father, I mean, for my brother was not a big deal, but I think for me was really something that kind of screwed me up a little bit, where I just didn't have any direction of where I was supposed to go. I mean, thinking back to it, everything I would do would be replicating what my father did. He drove trucks. I went into heavy diesel mechanics and I fixed trucks, right? So it was always kind of like in his field, like, just things to connect with him. Um, so about 2013, I had a girlfriend. We started using pills. I'd say within less than a year or a year and a half, we were injecting heroin at that point. Like it progresses that quick. It doesn't have there's no like slow down button on it. It progresses very 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 fast. And then once you reach that point, you're kind of you're like an empty shell. I think back to things that I did, and there was no consideration for anything, especially myself and my health and my well-being. I would do things that were completely destructive, and at the time, like I didn't even double think it or anything. I just went with it. I ended up losing jobs on the street, just multiple overdoses. I couldn't even count how many overdoses I've had because sometimes you overdose, you wake up hours later, you don't know what happened. Sometimes you overdose and you're not coming back unless someone intervenes. If there's no intervention, you're dead. And I mean, I would say probably 4. Anytime someone's overdosing, it's Narcan that's gonna save them. I've never, like, maybe back in the day when I wasn't around, but as far as I've been around, I've never seen anybody overdose and come back without Narcan being used as an intervention for that. And it's a hell of an experience too, to black out, wake up, and when you wake up with Narcan, like, you wake up fast, you don't know what's going on, you feel absolutely terrible because it just knocked all the opiates off your receptors, and you're mad. The guy just saved your life, and you are pissed at them because you don't understand at the point. You don't understand that you were dead. As far as you're concerned, you did a hit, you nodded off, and then some asshole came and Narcaned you and fucked it all up, right? So I mean, I've seen so many people get Narcan and wake up very mad. The first couple times it happened to me, but afterwards I started to realize, like, when that happened, I would start appreciating the person who did it. So, I mean, yeah, so multiple, and even that doesn't stop you from using. But I'd say, like, the last time I was Narcaned was a police officer. I did a hit in my truck parked downtown Montreal, and I woke up on the sidewalk with a police officer over me telling me he had to Narcan me 4 times and give me CPR to bring me back. And despite the fact that I was also being arrested, I went to the hospital with that officer, and we talked the whole time, and I was super appreciative. I understood at that point that I was in an addiction and I didn't want to be there. That's where I was in my life at that point, and there was no hard feelings. Let's say like that. There was no hard feelings. I knew I did wrong. I knew the consequences of what I did, and I was very appreciative that somebody was there to bring me back, basically.
I have a quick question for you, especially since you had that experience in Montreal with a police officer. About 3 weeks ago, news break out in Quebec that none of the government's employees are now mandated to have Narcan on them. And this is a decision that was pressured by the unions because they claim that it posed a risk to the people that were responsible to Narcan the addicts. And that claim is specifically saying, well, it's a medication, it should be in a first aid kit. Also, they claim a large potential for violence, which I think personally, looking into the matter, I have no practical experience. I have never seen anybody got Narcan, but you know that out of EpiPen is also a medication, and that people usually are extremely confused and potentially violent when they are revived with an EpiPen, and don't believe anybody will make the claim that it shouldn't be in a first aid kit. So my first reaction was this is extremely targeted at addicts' lives don't matter as much as people with peanut allergy. I don't know how to react to this, but I'd like your say, since that saved your life a couple times, and such regulation could have had a different fate for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't agree with any of that. I can try to see both sides. I can see how somebody who, just somebody on the street administering first aid to somebody could cause issues. Let's say he had a DR, do not resuscitate, and someone hits him with Narcan. Well, now you got, but it's not a medical professional that's administering it. It's kind of it's a mess if you think about it in that sense. But I mean, that's the same thing as I used to be a lifeguard, and it was like you had to ask permission for certain situations to save someone's life, as opposed to being able to just do it. You needed permission. So, and even that I don't agree with. I know there is laws protecting first responders in that sense, where if you're, if you're on the side of the road, like, you're not going to pull paperwork and have a conversation with the guy, you're going to save their life, right? But, and then as for violence, I can see the possibility. I don't think it's really a risk. I mean, they get mad. Usually, as far as I've seen, most opiate addicts are pretty docile. They're not, they might yell, they might say things, but usually they kind of just want to go in their own corner and do their things. Very different from something like meth or something where they just don't know what they're doing and they're freaking out. So I would say you have more of a risk probably of violence if you gave someone an EpiPen than you would with Narcan, in my experience. Because I mean, you'll wake up, but you'll still be pretty sedated and confused, and you're not gonna have all kinds of energy like as if it was an EpiPen.
So you don't
But
feel the eye, but you're still dozed out, basically.
oh yeah, like because it's still in your system, and then like that's why they tell you have to go to the hospital because as soon as that Narcan wears off, you can fall right back into your overdose. Like that, it blocks. It'll block it for a certain period of time, but depending on how much you have in your system, you can't just rely on that and then walk away because once it wears off, if you still have enough in your system to overdose, you'll go right back into it. So, I would say I don't think people would be violent. I mean, if somebody's violent in that way, they're probably just violent in nature in any way. But to arise violence out of somebody like me, no, I don't. I don't see that. I
In
think every police officer should have them, and even more than just the police officer should have them.
Yeah. In the continuity of that news breaking in Quebec, we were invited to participate into a campaign to promote Narcan, and I kind of feel that such decision at government level made it so that it becomes a civic duty to have Narcan available for civilians, right? Because if they are not going to save people's life, then who will? We will. I will definitely, if I'm given the opportunity. Fucking life matters, and I'm happy to have you on the show today because I have no practical experience about the topic at all. And as I like to say, Eric, as well, we come from a place of ignorance about most of what we're discussing on the podcast. So thank you for explaining that journey of yours with.
Well,
Yeah,
actually, what we like to say is we don't know shit about fuck, right?
Exactly,
Okay,
like Brooke Glenmore.
that's right.
right. Yeah. Well, I know when Eric was talking to me about coming on here, because he had heard a story that I had told him. I mean, a lot of the time, well, during the end years of my addiction, where heroin became extremely hard to find and fentanyl was all you could get, I was using pills from somebody I knew, but every time they would run out, I would have no choice but to go get fentanyl, and that always scared the shit out of me. So I used to keep every time I do a hit, I'd have Narcan in my hand, on my lap, somewhere visible on me, so that anybody walking by, it's there, it's ready to go in case I need it, or just somebody that knows what's going on but doesn't have one on him. I got one on me, and it's where you can see it, kind of like an allergy bracelet.
Well, and I think now you've really hit the nail on the head. What we're talking about when we talk about addiction, like you're aware that you might
Oh,
die
oh
from
yeah.
what you just bought because you're not using what your regular supply, let's say, and now you've bought this stuff, so you need Narcan on you because your addiction's so strong that you're going to do it anyways. But your fear's not enough to stop you from stopping right now.
And it goes further than that because I've overdosed, been Narcan, went to the hospital, got out, and did another shot of the same thing right away. Like it controls your mind like no other. Like it's really like I like to say a possession. So I did a long stint in the hospital before going to Heritage after an overdose on fentanyl. I had woken up, my thigh had necrosis, meaning part of my thigh muscle had died, and either the blood from that, the bad blood from my necrosis, plus the drugs in my system were pretty much shut my kidneys down. So I was like really right on the brink of death, and I spent 4 months in the hospital, and I continued to use in the hospital because they were giving me painkillers for my pain, obviously. It started off where they would inject me, so in that sense, there's no way I can abuse it. They come in, they inject me, they leave. But once it switched to pills, I just started crushing them up and putting them into my IV. And when people say, the hospital is the dirtiest place, it is the dirtiest place because I've done some really dirty things, but I've never caught infections like I caught in the hospital. It was almost every other day I had a new blood infection from using. And it got to the point where the nurses and the doctors, they knew what I was doing. And I was begging them to get me off these pills. Don't leave me in a room with these pills. Don't, I was to the point where I was telling him, crush the pill up and throw it inside of orange juice. So I have no choice but to drink it. I can't inject a fucking cup of orange juice, right? So that's how bad the addiction is you're absolutely fully aware, but that's why I say it's like a possession. It's like you're in your body, you know what's going on, but something else is controlling your body and controlling what you're doing. And and you're watching it. You're just watching is what you're doing.
Crying for help because you know that there's things they could do to prevent you from misusing it, but they let you free to misuse, right? So that in a way is, to me, very very speaking about like you don't want to do this anymore, but the addiction has full control
Oh yeah,
about your decision making. Even though you're done with it, you're thinking about getting sober, but there's no way you can do it on your own.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's no way I could control myself with medications like that in access to it. And even to this day, I don't trust myself. When I go to when I came here, I moved out west afterwards to get away from Montreal because I knew there was not a chance that I would have succeeded in Montreal. I came out here and I'm doing awesome. I don't even because opiates are not in access, especially out here. We're in the middle of nowhere. I don't even think about it. But when I went back to Quebec, back to my parents' house, and I'm sitting there, and memories are coming back, and that was just a wake up call that, I really did make the right decision to get out of there. Because even a year later, going back, it just feels like the entire year didn't happen, and I'm just right back where I was, and it was all a dream type of thing.
So
But
people, places, and things are very important, not to
yes,
be neglected.
so I mean, I've been through rehab a few times, so I knew the whole idea behind it. But really, what worked for me was changing places. And then as far as people, I mean, 10 years of heroin addiction, you don't have any people. You're by yourself at that point. So there was
No,
nobody to leave behind except for the dealers.
that's true. I remember you telling me. I forget how many rehabs you told me you went to, but I know that when I met you at Heritage, you were ready to heal. You were ready to move on and to change your life. Was it something about Heritage, or just where you were in your life now?
Oh, I would say it's both. I would say it's both because I had been 4 months at a different rehab. I got kicked out because I think what my issue was there is there was too many people. There was not enough attention on individuals, and I just got lost in the crowd basically. So when I got kicked out of there for misconduct, that same night was the night I overdosed and ended up in the hospital. So I didn't get a break. I went to rehab. I got kicked out. I relapsed. I overdosed. Hospital for 4 months. And the day I left the hospital, I went to Heritage.
Right, right.
So I mean, I knew I was determined to get sober, but it was fighting that demon that's possessing me. That was the whole ordeal. But getting to Heritage was an amazing feeling.
Right.
It's you have the time, you have the space. It's a smaller community. I was blessed to have the people that I had when I was there because everybody was awesome when I was there. We all hung out, we all got along. So that really, really, really helped solidify hey, you can have relationships or friendships with people that are sober. That exists. You can have a great time with people that are sober because other rehabs I find they don't really focus on good time, having a good time. And that was really important for me to see that there is good in life without the drugs.
Yeah, and I'll just mention to our audience I can't speak for other rehabs, but the way you just described the one prior to your hospital stay at Heritage, there's usually not more than 12 people, 12 residents at a time. So counselors and psychologists on site, nurses, and other staff. You really are attended to.
Yes.
And we have a lot of free time in between the lunchtime and the supper. There's a free time period there, which is at least 3 hours long. And then after the last workshop, which finishes at 7, we are free right till 11 o'clock as well, which we took advantage of by having campfires, watching movies. We had movie nights. As residents, we put together ourselves. We played pool. We video games. Yeah, you're right. And we really got a lot of sober time in, hanging out and being normal again. It
Yeah.
was I have great memories of Heritage too, and Everett went to Heritage too. So
Yeah, and if I can just bounce on what you just said, Eric, like the type of fun I had in Heritage, I haven't had in 20 years, and that precedes active addiction. Like genuinely being transparent and having your actual shit exposed to people that accept you for who you are. I was maybe 10 years old the last time that happened to me. So the type of connection, just letting loose, having fun for real around that pool table or playing whatever board games is a larger part of my recovery, I believe. I want to say more important than the workshop. Not that the workshop are not essential. I don't do my tools every day, but feeling like an actual human with emotions was from the community and also from the staff. Not going to name drop anybody, either patient or staff, but my life was saved by the human connection. Honestly, that's my strongest belief about heritage.
Yeah, and Sam, when I got there, you were like the OG already.
No, I don't know. When I got there, like everybody had just left, and because I had previous experience with rehab, I kind of knew how to navigate myself, and I don't know. I had a great time, man. Pushing people to play volleyball, play softball, have fires. Like just me too. Like you were saying, it's really that human connection that probably, I mean, did a good portion of my recovery. Even here today, I have friends in town, and we do movie nights. We have fires. We go mountain biking. We go boating and wakeboarding, and like I'll go over, hey, it's a nice day. Let's get out. Let's do something. And they're always ready to do the same. So that's like something that I didn't even consider before Heritage, before I realized, hey, look, you can have fun with sober people and just tons of things to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, I think you had a question.
Yeah, well, I have several questions. Sam, you mentioned going to several other rehabs before that shit went down, the 4 months at that specific rehab that kicked you out, relapsing, the hospital. But I'm curious, like the other rehabs that you went to, were the program compared to Heritage? So Heritage is special in a way that Smart Recovery is uncommon in Quebec or in Canada in general. Quite unique if you, from what we've seen. Other rehabs that you went to, was it more around 12 step? Was it more around institution, like government type of thing? Like,
Yeah.
how would you compare your experiences in rehab?
Well, I mean, I've seen it work for other people, and I know the big difference is the price, right? These other rehabs I went to were like on welfare. You can get there on welfare, and that caused a significant problem too because we had a lot of people there on welfare because of court or this or that, and they had no intention of being sober, and that poisons the bunch. That gives you those urges. It really messes things up. Whereas as at Heritage, people are paying a lot of money to be there. They're serious on the recovery. There's no like screwing around like that. I mean, I'm sure there is, but to the level is not the same at all. When you're going 32 people in a house to 12, it's a big difference. The first rehab I went to when I was 15 years old, and I mean, like I said before, back then I had let's say a substance abuse problem, but I wouldn't say an addiction at that point. I just, I mean, so example, I don't know if just to make that more, I don't know if like you understand what I mean, but
Go ahead.
like if somebody the way I look at it, if somebody does cocaine once a month, I don't consider that an addiction, but I do consider that a substance abuse problem because there is no justifiable reason why anybody should be doing it. So right there is an issue with abusing a substance, but an addiction to me really when it consumes your life and takes a hold of everything and it's all you think about and do. Somebody that goes and does ecstasy on the weekend, it's a substance abuse problem for sure because they're not doing it. People do these things sober. You don't have to be doing drugs to do these things, but I wouldn't consider it an addiction. So that's why when I say I have substance abuse problems with every substance, anything that, I'll have a problem with it. But the one that brought me down into an addiction was really opiates and maybe we can say benzodiazepines. But as far as everything else, not enough of an interest to do it every day. But the fact that I did it, period, shows that I have a problem with substance abuse.
That's interesting what you're saying. Like, so rehabs that are free, in the same way that we describe the importance of community and heritage into our success, it is the exact opposite in an environment where people have no intention of getting clean or that are forced to be there. It's an interesting contrast just there. But in terms of the program itself, what you've learned in Heritage, was it all news for you? Like the
So
workshops and all?
yeah, so the one I went to right before Heritage was the same program. It was Smart Recovery. They did have the 12-step meetings for the people that wanted to go. You know, the NAAA, if you wanted to go, they were there, but that wasn't forced upon you. Even the Smart, they had a specific day for Smart Recovery meetings that you didn't have to attend, but if that's the route you wanted to go, you had that option. So really, I would say the program is the same. It was the environment that was not good. Even the counselors, I would say, were all great counselors. But when you're expected to take care of, 30 something people with mental health issues, and there's only three psychiatrists or trained people there, you can't expect them to perform miracles. But yeah, I really think that the environment is a very big thing for me, or at least for me it was.
Makes a
Well,
lot of sense.
actually, I think we all spoke to the environment. I don't know anyone that went to Heritage and doesn't speak about the environment. And I don't mean just the grounds, but in essence, the grounds, the rooms, everyone with their own separate room. I've heard other stories about other rehabs where you're not in a separate room.
Oh
Sometimes you have a
no,
room.
no.
All kinds of things, right? Yeah, you could probably speak to that. Did you always have
Well,
Yeah,
roommates before?
Heritage does not feel like detention, and that was key
exactly.
for me. Like I was afraid that I will be locked down, or I would not have been able to get clean that way. But to my amazement, when I arrived in Heritage, I felt love, and that was destabilizing up to the point where going to the kitchen, you're being talked to like you're an actual worthy human being. That was very special. I thought that I'm gonna have a hard time. The staff's gonna be no, my apprehensions were not correct, but I believe my apprehension could have been right in other environments.
Yeah. Actually, I have a point on that. When you're talking about like lockdown, so other places I went to, it was, I wouldn't say lockdown, but they had certain things like they would shut your TVs off at a certain time, and you had to be doing certain things at certain times, cleaning at this day, cleaning this, cleaning that, like so all your spare time that you would use, to whatever you want to work on, you're not using that spare time for anything. You're basically being put to work. And then as far as the staff, a lot of them were quick to jump to the drill sergeant type of way of speaking, and I can understand that, because if they're dealing, like I said, with people that don't want to be there, that are sneaking drugs in, that are doing bad, if they're dealing with that all the time, it kind of gives you that that's your initial reaction when you react to people is going to be like that. Same thing as with what they say with police officers. Like, police officers dealing with assholes all fucking day, and then they're going to be an asshole to you for a ticket. Well, it's because they're dealing with assholes all day, and that's just kind of like the routine that they get into.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ev, you make a good point. And not just the kitchen staff, but I know what you're talking about when you would go to get a meal. I won't say her name, but I know we can edit it later. But you walk in and it's like, "Hello, dear. How are you doing?" And dear, right? "Hello, dear. How are you doing today, dear? Are you okay? Are you doing all right?" When you first get there, especially, right? They really cater to you. What can you eat today? And they tell you, "Oh, you want this on your plate? Salad? You want soup, dear?" Everything to massage you through at the beginning until you get better and you get to know them as well. And then it's more jovial and there's jokes. I mean, really, I've often said this, the cleaning staff and the kitchen staff were so nice. It starts there before you even really start to get into the workshops. You got all these people there already treating you like a human being, like you matter, with some respect, some dignity, that you couldn't I mean, it was hard not to turn that switch over and go, "Holy shit, this is where I want to be. This is where I need to be."
Yeah.
It's almost instantaneous once you're on the grounds, once you get past the intake.
What you mentioned, Eric, is that especially like staff that are not counselors, they don't even have to interact with you. So it's not forced, it's very natural. And they really care. That I believe is pretty unique. And well, Heritage feels like a safe space. And it, I believe, forever will feel like that. So the hard emotional time once 5 months after, and I decided to go spend $800 over the course of 2 days because this is where I would feel safe, and that's the time I first met you, Sam, in July last year, actually. Yeah. So, anyways, all that to say that we give a lot of love to that place on this podcast for obvious reasons, but interesting to know that like your experience was also similar with comparing with other rehabs.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm sure that approach is the approach some people need. Is the drill sergeant, figure your shit out, but not everybody, especially when certain people like ADHD. I need extra attention. I need people to be watching me and paying attention to what I'm doing, because if I start going off course and no one's watching, that's when bad things start happening. And it was nice to have a small community, everyone taking care of each other, everyone knew what was going on. You had any issues, you're very comfortable to talk to your peers. So yeah, very, very, very big difference between other rehabs.
Well, I think you hit the nail right on the. I think you hit the nail right on the head there. Small community, getting to know your peers, and another thing you mentioned earlier, people are paying to come here, right? And you said they must want it. If you're paying to go there, you probably want to get better, right? Whereas you mentioned
no one's gonna waste $12,000 to just fuck around.
But we've observed as well that a lot of people are willing to get better, but they're not willing to admit that they are addicts. So this is a terminal disease that they can never use, right? There's different level of acceptance, even though you want it. How bad do you want it? It's not the same for everybody. Like you died a couple of times before getting there. So how did you get there actually? Because from the hospital to there, is it your parents bring you there? You decided on your own? Like how did that go?
Well, originally it was I got 3 DUIs in 1 year. So on the last DUI, I crashed my company truck. I lost my job. I had no other reason. Like my excuse was always, I can't go to rehab. I have work. I got bills to pay. I got this. But once you lose your job, I was like, okay, fuck it. Now's the time. Let's go now. And it was a struggle because, like I said, I went to 1 rehab, was not successful, ended up in the hospital, and I just kept fucking pushing for it. And it came eventually. It definitely came coming out the hospital. That's where the switch went off, and I said, okay, this is it. I also in the hospital. I mean, my heart is permanently damaged. I had infections in my heart. I had infections in my lung, and I still feel it to this day. If I go running or something, when it beats hard, there's a sharp pain in my heart, and that'll probably never go away. So,
are you followed by specialists for that?
I was for a while. I finished all my antibiotics, and now because I moved across the country, I'm in the process of getting my Alberta healthcare right now. That was something I was thinking about before. What I wanted to say I didn't say. It was like when I go to doctors, I immediately disclose my addiction, because for me the most dangerous thing is prescription medications, especially out here where if I wanted my drug of choice, it would have to come from the hospital. It would be very out of the way to go drive 4 hours down to Edmonton where I don't know anybody and try and find something. So I'm thinking my biggest risk factor is the hospital. Some doctors like to prescribe things just willy-nilly to anybody. So I immediately disclose that I am an addict and that I was in the hospital for this and that, and it was all because of my addiction. That way, immediately they know I'm off the list for all narcotics. This is not happening. And, that there's that little bit of pain of saying that to them, but afterwards you have that relief that it's not going to be a worry. It won't be a temptation. You've taken care of it, and that's...
I was asking, you probably relate, but because we lost one of our brothers in recovery recently, an active member in the alumni community who had been off opiates for 3 years, and he was doing good, was tapering down on several things at the same time. But the art is what took him during the night, and he was followed by so many doctors. So I was asking because, well, I think it's so tragic that you actually get clean, your life is back onto something that's manageable, you're doing well, but then the body decided it's over. Not that it's not tragic to lose people to addiction from ODs, but affected me differently that time because, well, it was somebody that was looking up to in my recovery, like a large inspiration. Being proof that it's possible to actually get better. Really sensitive when you mention your art, it directly crossed my mind. So
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, my last EKG, my heart was functional enough that I should be okay. But if I were to go back and sort of using things, it'd probably get me. Yeah, it probably would. Like even if I went and did completely different drug, let's say I start doing stimulants, that would probably be very hard on my heart. So there are certain things that I have to be conscious of and be aware of. Even just exercise, take it easy, especially when you're feeling that. But hopefully, tomorrow I'm gonna make my appointment with the doctor, and this way I'll be able to transfer my archives to him, and he will be able to, reconfirm if it's okay or not. So because he's definitely gonna want to take a look once he sees my history.
Yeah, I can only imagine he'll probably schedule quite a few things right away.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, well,
you
you really did the right thing too, right? And I remember you in rehab talking about this, people, places, and things. You were adamant that you were not going back to where you lived, and you didn't want to be near Montreal. And I remember we joked with you and me and a couple of the other guys, your friends, because you were a little slow to do something sometime because of your ADD. You'd get a little distracted. We were like, in private, we were like, I don't know if this guy's going to go there or not. He keeps talking about it. He doesn't really start anything. But when the clock started to tick, when you knew you were going to be getting out soon, that's when I guess the ADHD or ADD kicked in. You started getting some stuff going. I helped you with the resume. I remember
Yeah.
one of our other friends helped you with LinkedIn. Another girl there helped you with some other things, and we got it all done in like really quick time. So yeah,
Yeah.
was it smart, or you just knew people, places, and things could not be you couldn't do it? You had to get the hell out of that province.
I was like 99% positive that I would be have my best chance to get away. Definitely best. Like I can't. I was thinking British Columbia or here. I'm kind of happy that I ended up in this town. It's kind of like a big heritage, to be honest. It's a very very small community. Everybody knows each other. Everybody's super nice, and we're out in the middle of nowhere. So like, there ain't really nothing I can do but just live in the town. I don't have a car anymore either. I'm really stuck. Like the closest town out of here is an hour away. Is the closest town, and this
okay?
town is very small. Like 2 gas stations and 1 restaurant.
Did you
Wow.
choose that place specifically, or like you were hired there and you went there without knowing where you were going?
So I did not choose this place specifically. My friend was working 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off out in British Columbia near what was it?
McMurray,
Fort St. John,
Fort St. John.
Fort
Okay.
St. John in Northern BC, and
Oh,
he
BC.
wanted to relocate his family and just live here. So when he said that, I said, like I'm coming with you. So we had a place in Fort St. John, and last minute that fell through. And then within a couple of days, we had found a place here in Fox Creek. And when I left Heritage, we just packed up the trailer, packed up the truck, and drove here. I had no job waiting for me. But once I was here, I think on the second day, I took my resumes and or my CVs, and I walked up the street. I went to 3 companies, so about 15 minutes, and I was hired.
Wow.
I didn't even make it all the way down the street. There's plenty more companies, and I'm pretty happy with where I am now. I mean, obviously there's some issues with work sometimes, but in general, I'm left to do my own thing. I enjoy what I do, and like it's a very small company, so we all know each other. So
And it
that's
also feels like a community and a family
oh yeah.
extension of what you've acquired in Heritage. You've mentioned previous attempts with methadone and also with Suboxone. Going into Heritage, were you opiate replacement, and how did that evolve from there?
No, I was not. When I was in the hospital, they offered because they wanted to, because they knew I was abusing the Dilaudid. They offered, and I specifically told them no. I said I'm not leaving this hospital on anything. That I will not leave this fucking hospital bed until I am not on anything. because methadone, I mean, besides keeping you from being sick, was pretty fucking useless to me. That's really all it did. It was just the backup. The backup, I couldn't have anything. And then Suboxone, I have very strong opinions about Suboxone. I absolutely hate it. I think it's one of the most terrible things you can put in your body. You know, just almost to the point I would probably, you know, your risk of dying or your risk of overdosing is a lot less, but I would say fentanyl is probably healthier for your body than Suboxone. It's a very, very powerful medication, and it gets really deep into your bones. You know, so I was on Suboxone at the previous rehab, and I had come off of it kind of on my own terms. I had made my own taper, and I've gone through withdrawals from methadone. I've gone through withdrawals from heroin, Dilaudid, fentanyl. Nothing compares to the withdrawals from Suboxone, and I had tapered down to the minimum dose that you would normally give, and I was fine up to the minimum dose. But once I stopped completely, I was sick for about a month. Instead of 3 days, 4 days, it was a month.
I hear that a lot. Like, there's no debating. Like, it saves thousands of life every year, but at what cost? Because of course, yeah, the withdrawals from it is even harder. The fact that it's Purdue that produces it is also a bit conflictual, I guess, because you just
Yeah.
switch your customer base from the problem to the solution, and the solution has to be taken permanently. Yeah, so I have no experience, but I've read a lot, right, for the purpose of this podcast. Like, there's a very like two very extreme set of opinions about the substance itself and its potential to save life, right? But we air that a lot, and even one of the person we want to book onto this podcast is a rapper and is rapping about this. Matt Keegan, not sure if you heard of the guy, but is at the battle against Purdue essentially, and yeah. So I guess that Band-Aid is not a solution. So going off of it has been harder than going off Fent. That to me blows my mind. Like, why is it offered so it's the only solution? A bit like Eric is having a hard time with 12 step being the only solution proposed to people. Feel like this solution for opiates replacement is now standardized as this is the way to go. Don't dispute it. Just take it.
Yeah, I mean, I was totally for it when I was an addict because I was terrified of withdrawals and stuff. But at this point, I think it's definitely a very hard decision as an addict to make. But to go just do a detox and be detoxed with, you know, they'll give you other medications to make you more comfortable, but they're not going to give you opiates. And you're just gonna, if you're coming off of heroin or fentanyl, you're gonna feel like shit 3-4 days. That's it. Whereas if you make the commitment to go on Suboxone, once you're on it, it's very difficult to get off of it. And I mean, you can function, you can live a great life. I know some people that have been sober for 30 years, but they're still taking methadone, and in their mind, they think if they stop the methadone, they will relapse. You know, that's fine. That's completely fine. If that works for you, fucking do it. But for me, it was a long struggle of I thought that was the way to do it, and for me, it really wasn't. And I wish I hadn't ever fucking gone on it, but it is what it is. I have the experience now. I know what works for me, and I'm not bashing anybody that's using it. If it's working for you, use it.
Yeah, and let me just say, Sam, I remember, and I could speak for some of us that were there. We knew you were in pain, but we never knew like really how much pain you were in. And Sam was in a lot of pain most of the time when I was at Heritage, especially your leg. And he complained about it a lot, but I never seen him ask for anything. Like you said, he didn't take anything. This guy just managed his emotions and his pain management while at Heritage. And people don't realize how tough they must have been to do everything you were doing there. You always, some days you just couldn't do what you wanted to do, like you talked about volleyball or baseball. There were some days I remember you had to just sit in the chair because your leg was not cooperating that day. So yeah, kudos to you, man, because I remember how much pain you were in some days.
And when I was in the hospital, they were telling me like I would never walk properly again. And to this day, I'm wakeboarding, I'm mountain biking, I'm running. There's very, very, very minimal pain. The nerve is still all messed up. The feeling is all messed up all down my leg. But as far as pain, it's almost non-existent at this point.
Oh, super.
Great news to hear. That's funny, right? Same thing. The doctor says, well, okay, so this will never work ever again in the same way that you will never succeed without Suboxone. I think that the power of will is extremely important. And once you want it, really, a lot can be achieved, even by a defective and broken human being like we used to be. And in many capacities, we still are.
Would you say his will is too strong for 12 steps? It sounds like his will is too strong.
Don't be an asshole, Eric. No, not today.
The opinion was there.
But what I mean is that if we let others dictate what we can and cannot do, I think it can hinder our potential for recovery a lot.
Yeah, I think too, it's also knowing what you want. It's knowing what you like. You really have to. It took me a long time to really say, hey, this is what I want. I want to go to Alberta. I want to be a heavy diesel mechanic, and a doctor telling me that I won't walk right, or I won't be able to do that is not going to fucking stop me. This is what I want, and this is the things I know that will bring me joy in my life. So I'm not going to give up on that because somebody told me, you might not be able to do it. Even if I was still limping today or on crutches, I'd be fucking fixing trucks on crutches. I don't care. I'll do it in a wheelchair, right? You can't let somebody, or even especially even a doctor or a counselor, counselors, they're there to counsel you. That doesn't mean everything they're telling you is what you need to do. It's to help you figure out what you want to do, not for them to tell you.
And that's the empowerment that I believe is very, very, very key in smart recovery. You're not surrendering to any higher forces, whatever that is. Surrender to the fact that I have an addiction and I can never use. But after that, I've been empowered by the power of choice. And what you've mentioned, Sam, you said it out loud, this is what I want to do. You're being assertive. And Eric, recently you used the word manifest it. Once I say it, it's real. I know what I want, and I'm going to make it happen, and I'm not going to let anybody stop me. That is the exact opposite of going on your knees and surrendering to whatever that is you have to surrender to. I also have strong opinions about 12-step, not as strong as Eric.
Senses, clutch, date, divinity, wouldn't, fuck, touched, hazy, God, change, rush, floor, life, veins, head, pressure, senses, clutched, date, divinity, wouldn't, fuck, touched, hazy, God, change, rush, floor, life. From a head full of pressure as the senses that I clutched. Made a date with divinity, but she wouldn't let me fuck. I got touched by a hazy shade of God, helped me change. Caught a rush on the floor from the life in my veins. From a head full of pressure as the senses that I clutched. Made a date with divinity, but she wouldn't let me fuck. I got touched by a hazy shade of God, helped me change. Caught a rush on the floor from the life in my veins. It goes 1 for the cannabis, and 2 for your Dianetics, 3 for the reasoning, and 4 for those that try to get it, and 5 for your love, and 6 for the stress, and 7 for the day that I climbed into this mess. From a head full of pressure, senses that I made a date with divinity, but she wouldn't let me fuck. And I got touched by a hazy shade of God, helped me change, and caught a rush on the floor from the life in my veins. I'm catching ulcers from the childproof lighters, and all of these fine-tooth fighters that keep the wires in my head tighter. I'm tired out by the distances achieved, walking in my sleep. Thoughts got shifted since the high, got a tad too deep. Asked dad to keep cool, I call him back soon as I resume normal and get out of this bathroom, and call management to seek some reimbursement for the nerve endings that burnt from the first hits. from a head full of pressure. As the senses that I clutched made a date with divinity, but she wouldn't let me fuck. I got touched by a hazy shade of God, helped me change. Caught a rush on the floor from the life in my veins. Head full of pressure as the senses that I clutched made a date with divinity, but she wouldn't let me fuck. And I got touched by a hazy shade of God, helped me change. Caught a rush on the floor from the life in my veins. So fuck needles, fuck smoke, fuck lines that make the sinus choke. Fuck chases, trails, fuck waves and rails. Fuck hangovers, fuck hallucinations, regurgitations, mandatory sentences, and you ain't tracing. Blind my insight and dull the common sense. Give me inhibition, kill the superstition and the confidence. Built a tolerance, now it's more that I consume. And when it pours up my room, the world's whores will croon in unison. Unify the eulogy. Autopsy pages read euthanasia, i.e. irony. Well, here I be within a pool of my drool, sedated, windows dilated, comatose, life overdose. Tell Jacob Miles to keep it wild style. I promise I'll smile and check the floor. God's got nice tile. Tell Jacob Miles to keep that shit wild style, and I'll smile and check the floor. God's got nice tile. From a head full of pressure as the senses that I clutched made a date with divinity, but she wouldn't let me fuck. And I got touched by a hazy shade of God, helped me change. Caught a rush on the floor from the life in my veins. From a head full of pressure as the sense that I clutched, I made a date with divinity, but she wouldn't let me fuck. And I got touched by a hazy shade of God, helped me and caught a rush on the floor from the life in my veins. Head, pressure, senses, clutch, date, divinity, wouldn't fuck. Touched, hazy, God, change, rush, floor, life.
But I'd like to hear your opinion on this. Like the environment of Heritage is very empowering. At least it felt like that for me. It might have been very different being in a more spiritual approach type of recovery for you not to be able, say, to manifest and express your desire in the same way, right?
I don't know how spiritual I really am. I mean, I definitely think that there is a higher power. I'm probably a little bit more on like the Elon Musk kind of idea of it. Like, it's either a simulation or whatever, but it doesn't really matter because the point is someone created this world. And in my view, it's, whether it's your God or your science sort of approach, there's still something, whether it's it's not a person, but there is something that created this world. I don't necessarily consider that means that something's following you every day and watching over you, but there's definitely a higher power. I mean, it's hard for me to speak on it because the reality is we don't know, and it's all on belief.
Well, you just a couple of words said essentially what my beliefs are. I'm agnostic, but I'm humbled by everything that I don't know. Right? That world that works in mysterious ways that I cannot explain. I have had experience. Well, I believe I should have been dead a couple of times, even though I was never actually dead and revived. Pushed my luck so many times, and the fact that I'm alive is to me like a miracle, if you want to say it this way. Um, and I think the type of life we've lived is inevitably humbling because, well, the fact that we are alive and successful today only because we're invincible. It's definitely not actually.
No. I mean, I like how you said that miracle, but when I look at the world, everything is a miracle. Everybody's life is a miracle. I'll go outside now and I notice a lot of things. I'll look at trees and just think like how complex this form of life is, and we see it every day and don't think twice about it, but it's like it's a miracle that this tree is here and this tree has survived and this tree is, it's fucking taking in carbon dioxide and it's letting out oxygen, and it's just, people don't really like realize these little things. I feel like a lot of addicts do. Once they get sober, they start realizing these very little things, and it's very powerful to see like, hey, look, like I'm struggling in life, but how much struggle has that tree over there had for over 100 years that it's been standing there? It's just like you need to look at the bigger picture and just appreciate the fact that you're here and you're breathing.
Yeah, I really like the way you say it.
Yeah, That's
What did
how
you
I
say,
look
Eric?
at it. That why I agree with what he said there. Yeah, and that's how I look at it. I'm grateful every morning that I wake up and I'm still breathing, and I'm cognizant of the fact of the. Let's use the word miracle, which is fine because I don't believe miracle necessarily in the biblical sense. The miracle of life, I do believe in. I can appreciate everything that I see around me, but I can't explain it. I mean, I can read about it and I can explain some things. Once I've read enough about it, but we all know in some sense that it's all a little too orderly. But then again, there's like still big questions that don't explain the order, and that's where I come at it from. I don't necessarily believe there's a captain on this ship.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe there's an order, but I don't believe there's a captain steering. Is
So
basically how I
nobody to
come at it.
surrender to. No captain to
Exactly.
surrender. No
Exactly.
orders to keep from the drill sergeant. Power is elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, like you're saying, like instead of you don't even need to understand it. It's just appreciate. That's what you need to do. You don't have to understand what life is. You just need to appreciate it, and that's it. That's like I'm very content with my life and happy with stopping right there. I don't need all these explanations or all these different theories or beliefs. Like I just appreciate that the sun is out. The birds are chirping. It's nice. I'm breathing. I feel good. That's it. That's all that really matters.
Like
Right.
that, and that perhaps could translate into serenity from the 12-step approach. But I like what you
But
say about the tree, how perfect it is, or how it is a miracle. Of course, if you go and study trees for 7 years, well, the magic probably will be gone because you'll understand every little mechanic aspect of the machine the tree is. But
hey,
what
enough about
good
your
will it
sex
do to
life.
you? Sorry, yeah, Eric, that's oversharing, right? Uh, but yeah, not understanding sometimes is a good thing because you can be just amazed
Yeah.
by that tree.
You can be like at peace, just accepting that. Look, I won't. No, I don't think anyone is ever gonna really know for sure what life is. So if I can be at peace with just not knowing, which is what I'm at now, I know that is a really really good feeling.
That sounds like my favorite meme, Everett? The
Which
the
one?
the the meme. Well, there's a meme. It's not mine. We didn't create this one, but the one where the two students are in class and they tap the student in front. And he passes him a paper, and then the other student passes the paper back because the first paper said, "What is the meaning of life?" And the paper that comes back says, "Get used to not knowing."
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, you're doing well, obviously, West. So I believe you found your place and where you are comfortable. I'm just curious about your legs and necrosis. So they gave you a prognostic. Of course, you beat it, but were they offering you like surgery or whatever attempt to
So
save your legs or?
I mean, I'd seen so many specialists, and I think the consensus was that it was not necessary to go in surgically and kill the nerve completely because it's my sciatic nerve, so it goes from my lower back all the way down to my big toe. So if they were to, um, they were pretty confident that the feeling should come. I've had nerve damage before and was told the same thing, and that was 15 years ago, and the feeling never came back. So, I mean, but I think that the risk versus reward of doing a surgery in my state was just better to leave it as is.
With your art being not in top shape,
Oh,
surgery pose more risk as well.
oh yeah, yeah. If we're talking about the heart, for sure, for sure, for sure. It's not like basically I just have a weak heart at this point.
Mhm.
It's not. It shouldn't cause any like. It's hard, I'm not a doctor either, right? So it's hard for me to describe. But from what I'm understanding, is one of my valves had an infection on it. The infection is cleared, but now there is scar tissue, so
Right.
it'll just remain like that.
So it could have been way worse to say it this way. And what are your next goals, next step? You just go with the flow one day at a time, 24 hours at a time, or you have now some goals?
So that's the thing, right? So I do have goals, but it's like every day I'm so focused on the day that like weeks go by and I'm like shit. You know, like nothing's changed, but I'm still happy with how it is. But it's like I do need to start an apprenticeship for my mechanics so that I can earn higher pays and stuff. And like I haven't really gotten on that yet. I'm still just getting on. Like I just recently got my Alberta license. Like technically, I was still living in Quebec. I just got this apartment on the 1st. There's a lot of things that have just changed where I'm kind of in a situation where I need to wait a little bit to, you know, to
Give yourself
restabilize.
recognition. You have reached several stretch goals already.
Oh
And
yes, oh
and
yes.
how long have you been?
I'm super stoked being
How,
here. My apartment's super nice, and I have like one of the best deals in town too. Like everything's, I don't have to. Everything's included. 2 bedrooms upstairs. It's all brand new, renovated. My neighbors are super cool. Like I know I have a steady job. I don't have a car now, so I've been biking every day. And in a sense, to me, that was like a good thing because I like working out, but I hate doing cardio. So if I'm forced to do cardio and biking back and forth to work, you know, good on me at least.
It's a
Okay.
blessing in a way that you didn't have your license just yet. It contributes to your recovery. That's a good way to see it, and that I believe only addicts who survived what we've survived can appreciate in life. Like there's good in the bad.
And also the mountain biking out here is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I walk out my back door and I just got to go a little bit further down. The beginning of the trail is right there. And it's just like super, super, like they dumped a lot of money into this. These trails are so well manicured. You know, they got culverts going underneath for the water so it doesn't ruin the trails. It's pretty wild, the outdoor activities that there are out here.
Sounds
It's
amazing.
tempting. I want to leave Montreal all of a sudden.
Wait, you had an extra bed, right? You had an extra room.
I do.
And Sam,
We'll have to
Tell
come pay you a visit.
tell
Hey,
the
I'm
audience.
open for visits. Anyone wants to come visit me, I'd love a visit.
I might take you up on that. Could you tell our audience how long you've been clean and sober now? Or do you even keep track of that?
I
Do you-
don't, but
I didn't
let's
think you
say I
did.
went. No, I'm not one of those people. You know, like, and I'm also not one of those people that says like, oh, if you relapse, you start back at zero. Fuck that. Time sober is time sober. You know,
Right.
that's it. That's what it is. You know, if you relapse, you're not sober for that period of time. But once you sober up, you're sober again, and your time continues. You know, it doesn't mean you restart at nothing. You just you keep working on it. The idea is to live sober. If you screw up and then get right back onto it, you know, I don't see. I mean, obviously the little issue you have to rework on it, but I don't condemn somebody to, you know, like I don't really count that stuff. I don't count that stuff. But
Well,
let's say I came into Heritage
it's
on
more
the
than a
17th of
year.
January. Or I came in on the
Almost have the same anniversary date because Eric celebrated this week and had a very long share in our alumni group. Congrats, by the way. That was one of the best share I ever heard. But yours was 24th. And it's interesting because what you mentioned, Sam, I don't count at all. And, because it's not like miserable. I'm not waiting for something to happen. It's not like a goal. A milestone, sure. I've crossed X month. But I usually realize it like several weeks after it passed, right?
Yeah.
Except maybe for the 1 year. 1 year, I guess, is special. Like, it was special for me. It didn't seem like it was something you even considered. What is it? 11 days ago was your 1 year,
Well,
essentially.
let's be fair too. My brother's birthday is on the 17th, so I was thinking
Okay.
about that. You know,
You have other things to be happy about that day.
yeah. Like I think I realized like a day or two ago. I was like, oh hey, it's been a year.
Yeah.
Look at that.
And it's probably not the day to just celebrate Sam, right? Hey, it's all about me today. Happy birthday.
Just feel the thunder. I
That's
totally
my cake.
would too.
It's my cake. Get your own.
As it really feels amazing because we are the three of us are in early recovery, and I feel like the depth of quality of the recovery in this room is quite unique. Everybody has a chance to make it like we did, and it's not promised, right? We got to keep being cognizant of the risk and our personalities that at any moment we could lose sobriety, but I guess you're not just lucky. We've put in the work. Sam, from the way you talk, I am amazed, and you are very inspiring into what actually is recipe for success on that recovery journey.
And I want to say too, you know, I didn't succeed at first or the second time, you know, or the third time. But what I heard, what I like this saying is, as long as you're breathing, there's hope. If you can stay alive, you can get better. Now you got it on your arm?
Son, it's right
The
there.
Christ.
Whilst I breathe, I have hope. I have it in life.
You pointed the Christ on your arm.
That's not a Christ. It's that's Guns N' Roses, you idiot.
Okay. Well, the image is blurry. I thought it was a cross.
Yeah. Well, no, that's here, and it's sideways. Remember, because I look at it like that.
Because you're
And it looks-
crooked. Yeah.
No,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's crooked. But anyways,
Sam, we have crossed the mark of an hour, and we try to keep it as short, not too short, but like so that people don't get discouraged and just drop it after 5 minutes because that's too long of a podcast. We can definitely have you back here because I think you have a lot to say that is deserves to be heard by the audience. But before we go to the closing chapter of this podcast, do you have anything you'd like to share that you haven't shared just yet? Any last words?
Well, okay, last words. Let's say anyone watching this podcast would have seen me a year and a half ago and really seen how bad it was. I think that, that speaks a lot to how, anybody can succeed in this and recover, because I know I probably don't look at it. I probably don't talk like it. A lot of times I've walked into rooms filled with addicts and said things that have just shocked all of them. So it can be very, very bad. If you're looking at me or Eric or him and saying like, I'm way more gone than they are. I won't get there. You will get there if you want to. And there's always people that are willing to help. And there's always different types of programs, different approaches. You can't choose one thing, try it, doesn't work, and then give up. There are so many options.
Keep trying, guys. That was awesome wisdom you just dropped there.
That's my closing words.
Thanks, Sam. Eric.
Yeah. Well, Sam,
I have a resurgence of faith right now. I really do believe there's something stronger than me, and that's my takeaway of the podcast. Now, Mike is yours.
That'll change next week. But anyways, yeah, Sam. I remember, Sam, when I got the Heritage. You might have acted cavalier sometimes, but you knew the tools and all the workshops inside out. You knew them back and front. You were correcting some of the counselors sometimes when they misspoke. How much you knew the tools. So I know you were paying attention. I know at this last stop for you, Heritage, that you wanted it, and you had made up your mind. And like you said, you weren't going to be told no. You weren't going to be told that my leg can't do it or I can't quit on my own. Tapering, I'm going to do that too. When I get there, I'm going to be fucking sober and clean. And you were, and you did everything you said you were going to do. And that's all on you. That's on you deciding to do it. And I'm in awe. I didn't know the story completely like that. And I'm just amazed at the story. And man, so glad you came on to talk to us today.
Thank you. It's a lot easier to go through the stories after you've been sober for a while, and you can properly process everything, right? And then you can explain yourself properly.
Getting your voice back takes some time. Like guilt and shame, at least for me, was real for a long time, even if I was clean. Like starting this podcast, was it 2 months ago or 2 months and a half, maybe? Is when I started being comfortable talking about it. But then we just cannot shut up anymore. We speak like 10 hours per week about recovery. But once we get there, it's amazing to be able to share experience with people that are earlier in their process of getting better. It's amazing, guys. It's a beautiful Sunday night. Sam, you're 3 hours behind, so you still can enjoy the sunlight.
Sun goes down at 10 o'clock or 10:30.
Wow.
So yeah, I got tons and tons and tons of light. I could probably go boating now.
Go boating. Okay, I definitely have to book a plane ticket to visit you now.
Yeah. You make it sound so enticing.
Definitely. At orange cone in Montreal's and the fucking humidity, like I don't enjoy myself these days. But who am I kidding? I'm alive, so should not complain.
And actually, I've heard that Edmonton is the sunniest city in Canada, and it's. I mean, we're not in Edmonton, we're close, but it is sunny every single day, and all day. Okay. Like midnight. Midnight is when it gets like.
Pack up the car, we going.
Okay, but you're paying the gas.
Shitty drive.
He likes to drive.
I
Yeah,
drove 3 times. I drove here 3 times, and Ontario is the worst fucking province to drive. It's half the trip is driving across Ontario.
That's what I've
Uh-huh.
heard.
Yeah, oh yeah. The distance from Manitoba to here is the same distance as crossing Ontario. Makes you think how big that fucking province is.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, seriously. Well, maybe we'll make a trip out, or maybe we'll just splurge on a plane ticket. But yeah,
Hey, $150 on Flair.
Okay.
is that
Don't tempt
holding
me.
onto the wing? You're holding onto the wing, right? So that sounds a little
All right,
cheap.
guys.
I'm kind of wondering where
Yeah.
they're cutting back on if it's that cheap. They have pilots, right?
That
You
just
just
means
got to
that the
stay
plane
standing.
that just means the plane might show up and it might not show up.
There you go. Hey, acceptance.
Oh,
There we go.
radical acceptance in all scenarios. All right, guys. I'm gonna wish you a wonderful evening. Thanks for your time, Sam.
No problem. I'm happy to be here.
Eric, I'm gonna do a couple memes now. Promise I'll work a bit for that page of
Oh.
ours.
The weekend's almost done. Why start now?
Oh yeah, I can start doing tomorrow.
I already got
Also,
my
fuck
bank.
you. You're raising guilt and shame in me.
I'm
No,
not.
I'm kidding. Right. Bye, guys.
All right, guys. Thanks
Hey,
for having me.
Bye, Sam.